The big day arrives. It has been almost 3.5 years since his first worldwide diplomatic triumph. It's a short time as history goes, but long enough for people to have forgotten that his Middle East peace plan, his last best hope for world peace, was the singular event that had primed the world for war, that had, after decades of divisive squabbling, focused the irrational hatred of 1 billion Muslims upon the tiny, insignificant nation of Israel. The world had conveniently failed to comprehend that the Russians had seen him, not Israel, as the threat when Dar al-Islam had been nuked into oblivion. There are but a relative handful who see the evil in the European leader. What will they do now, when the Germans during the 1930s had perceived the truth about Hitler? Many of those who were able had fled the fatherland. But where can one flee this time? This man is about to assume leadership of the entire world. The European leader and his entourage climb the stairs to the Temple Mount in triumph as film crews from news organizations around the world record the scene. The dais has been placed directly over the lower summit of Mount Moriah, the rock around which the Muslims had built their shrine, on the foundations of the 2nd century Roman temple to Jupiter. In the background stands the new temple, shimmering despite the darkened sun, a symbol to all the world of the fresh spirit of religious tolerance that had built it. The irony, like the polluted air, is so thick you can cut it with a knife. As he mounts the dais, the Antichrist greets world leaders and religious potentates. All of the most influential men of the earth have come to pay homage to their new leader. A few chapters back, I hypothesized about a liberal Jewish theologian who would be instrumental in making a success out of the Antichrist's vaunted worldwide ecumenical council. We'll meet this fellow in Scripture in a little while. He plays a major role in what's coming. For now, imagine him as the master of ceremonies on this most auspicious of occasions, this combination press conference and coronation on the Temple Mount. The theologian gives a glowing 40-minute appraisal of the Antichrist's accomplishments, characterizing him as a Prince of Peace. He prudently neglects to mention his most noteworthy achievement, starting a global thermonuclear war. Introductions done, the Euro leader approaches the podium. 1 billion television viewers, those in cities that weren't destroyed in the war, watch the scene with fascination and awe. As he begins his speech, however, the scene becomes confused. A shadowy robed figure is seen approaching from behind. A knife is raised high into the air, then thrust with fury deep into the man's right shoulder, narrowly missing the bulletproof Kevlar vest he's wearing. The Euro leader spins around to face his assailant and is shocked to see a man he knows, one of the priests who serve at the new temple. The deranged priest raises the knife again, and before the stunned onlookers can react, plunges it deep into his victim's right eye, screaming in Hebrew, "I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me." The priest is immediately cut down in a hail of gunfire, but the damage is done. The European leader is mortally wounded. 6 doctors confirm the obvious. His cerebral cortex has sustained massive trauma. He never had a chance. He was dead before his body hit the floor. I can remember as if it were yesterday, a bright fall day during my college freshman year. I had just finished my last class of the day and was strolling across campus toward the parking lot when I noticed all kinds of odd things going on around me. Guys running for no apparent reason, girls crumpled on the grass, sobbing uncontrollably. Through an open door, I saw a classroom full of people watching television. Many were weeping. I can't have walked 30 yards before it became apparent what had happened. President Kennedy had been shot. Analyzing my experience later, I was amazed at how quickly the information had traveled, how quickly the nation's perception of the victim shifted. Kennedy's assassination instantly elevated him from popular politician to revered martyr. People, including me, who hadn't paid much attention to his life or policies before, suddenly became keenly attuned to everything he had done and everything he might have accomplished had he lived. Now, imagine watching the Antichrist's assassination on live television. Even for those disinterested in politics, and everybody will be politically aware after living through a nuclear war, the man's stature will be suddenly raised to new heights, from the most powerful and influential man on earth to a beloved martyr, a bona fide saint, all with one stab of the knife. But it doesn't matter, you say. The man's dead. Yes, but therein lies the problem. The Antichrist, now a fallen hero who had instantaneously attained mythic proportions in the hearts of men and women all over the world, refuses to stay dead. Minutes after the coroner confirms his death, as the cameras roll on, the Antichrist regains consciousness and groans. He sits up, asks those nearest him what had happened, and complains of a sharp pain in his right eye. He can't see very well, he says. He seems puzzled by the odd reaction of the bystanders. They look as if they'd seen a ghost. But you were dead, they protest. We watched you die. It was horrible. He gets to his feet, rubbing his shoulders with his left hand. As a billion incredulous TV viewers watch, he absent-mindedly brushes at the bloodstains on his jacket and responds, "Yes, that would explain all the fuss. Lucky I wore a dark suit. Loan me your sunglasses. Let's get on with this, shall we?" I'm not making this stuff up. Well, not all of it anyway. The Bible tells us what will happen, but it doesn't give us much detail as to how, so I've taken the liberty of fleshing out the plot a little. At this point, we need to get back into the actual scripture. If you'll recall, John was shown this scene.
Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. Revelation 13:1 and 2.
This established the identity of the man we've come to know as the Antichrist. He's a Gentile from the sea who has taken over a federation of 10 kingdoms that was represented by 7 heads or leaders. The comparison to wild predators shows him to be quick and ruthless, with both great power and unrivaled authority, but his real strength comes from the dragon, Satan himself. John goes on to say,
And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. John 13:3.
That's it, I'm afraid. A few verses later, John confirms the wound was literal and apparently mortal, referring to
the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived.
But this is all the Bible gives us plainly concerning the beast's fatal head wound. So now you know as much as I do about it. Obviously, it could happen in any of 1,000 ways. I've sketched in one of them. But we know that it will happen, and we know that the bottom line is,
all the world followed the beast.
So where did I get all the specifics about his injuries? From an obscure Old Testament passage that, frankly, I'm not 100% sure applies to the Antichrist. But if not him, then who? You be the judge.
For indeed I will raise up a shepherd in the land who will not care for those who are cut off, nor seek the young, nor heal those that are broken, nor feed those that still stand. But he will eat the flesh of the fat, and tear their hooves in pieces. Woe to the worthless shepherd, who leaves the flock. A sword shall be against his arm, and against his right eye. His arm shall completely wither, and his right eye shall be totally blinded. Zechariah 11:16 and 17.
And the bit about the Jewish priest/assassin? I made it up. Put a big speculation factor of 9 on that one. But you've got to admit, it's awfully poetic. No one would be in a better position to see through the charade, as you'll soon see, though there will be many with ample motive. And if the assassin is Jewish, it will make it all the easier for the Antichrist to plausibly make an abrupt about-face in his policy toward Israel's defense, if, or should I say, when, it comes to that. I'm sure you didn't miss the parallel between Yahshua and the Antichrist here. Both were slain and then rose from the dead. There isn't an original bone in Lucifer's body. Well, okay, he's spirit. He doesn't have bones, but you know what I mean. From the very beginning, Satan has been trying to counterfeit Yahweh's plan for our salvation. This is his last bogus bill. They say that the best way to spot a counterfeit is to be intimately familiar with the real thing. Those who will be fooled by Satan's plot here have no idea what the real Messiah looks like. But this kind of sign will impress them like Christ's resurrection never did, because it will happen on live, worldwide satellite TV. Satan is the ultimate game show host, and the name of the game is You Bet Your Life. This is the turning point of the tribulation. This is where the mask comes off, where the real agenda of the Antichrist becomes clear. Well, sort of. Until now, he has been seen as a political leader in a world desperately trying to convince itself that there is no God. But the whole world has just seen what looks like a bona fide miracle. A man has come back to life from the dead. Does this mean that there is a God? I believe the Antichrist will at this point give credit where credit is due. Not to Yahweh, you understand, to Lucifer. It is here that the insight we glean from the Illuminati and Freemasons helps us understand what is going on. Satan is not a name. It's a description, an epithet. It means adversary. The being to whom this slur is ascribed, so often we sometimes forget that it's not his name, is popularly known as Lucifer, who was at one time a prince among Yahweh's angels, the mightiest of them all. Lucifer hates being called the adversary. He wants to be known as an angel of light, or better yet, worshipped as God himself. Satan, no doubt, prefers being called Lucifer because he'd really like us to believe that he's the source of enlightenment. That's why Adam Weishaupt named his Illuminati organization after him. To those of us who are personally and intimately familiar with the wealth of Yahweh's goodness, Satan's ploys are absurdly easy to spot. But the world, in their spiritual blindness during these times, can't see that he's as phony as a pink $3 bill. The vast majority will think this counterfeit Christ actually has value. His whole agenda, as we read in Isaiah, is to usurp the rightful place of Yahweh in our hearts.
How have you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning?
Note that this pegs him as the recipient of all the false sun god worship that's been going on since the days of Nimrod, and linguistically, his name is tied to the crescent moon deity of the Muslims as well.
How are you cut down to the ground, you who weaken the nations? For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God.
That is, the angelic host.
I will also sit in the mount of the congregation on the farther sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Isaiah 14:12-14.